There are places where the world ends, where the air is too thin to breathe, where the cold doesn't just freeze your skin, it freezes your thoughts, your will, your soul. Where the silence is so complete that you can hear your own blood moving through your veins. Where the whiteness is so absolute that you lose all sense of up and down, left and right, reality and dream. The mountains are one of those places. And in the winter of 1917, on a nameless peak somewhere along the Alpine front, there stood an observation post. A small stone bunker perched on the edge of a cliff, 3,000 meters above the valley floor. Its purpose was simple: watch the enemy, report their movements, survive. But on January 14th, the post went silent. No radio transmissions, no flare signals, nothing. A relief squad was sent to investigate. 5 men, climbing through a blizzard that threatened to tear them off the mountain with every step, carrying packs that felt like they weighed 100 pounds, breathing air so cold it burned their lungs like acid. They reached the summit at dusk. What they found there should have stayed buried under the snow. The ascent took 8 hours. 8 hours of leaning into the wind, of placing one foot in front of the other, of fighting the urge to just lie down in the snow and sleep, of watching the world below disappear beneath a sea of gray clouds. The lead climber moved slowly, methodically, his ice axe biting into the frozen slope with every step. Behind him, the others followed in a tight line, roped together like prisoners on a chain gang. Their faces were wrapped in scarves. Their goggles were caked with frost. Their beards had frozen solid. The wind screamed around them. It didn't just blow, it pushed. It tried to knock them down, to throw them off the cliff, to claim them for the mountain. But they kept climbing. The outpost appeared suddenly through the driving snow, a dark shape against the white. A low stone structure with a corrugated metal roof weighed down by rocks. A single chimney. No smoke. The lead climber raised his hand. The squad stopped, listened. Nothing. Just the wind. The endless, howling wind. They approached slowly. The door was open, swinging on its hinges, banging against the frame with each gust. No light came from inside. The lead climber stepped through the doorway, raised his lantern. The light cut through the darkness and revealed the interior. It was empty. The observation post was a single room, maybe 15 feet by 20. Stone walls, a wooden floor, a small iron stove in the corner, a table, chairs, a cot, a telegraph machine mounted on the wall, and no one inside. But the room wasn't abandoned, not entirely. There were plates on the table, tin cups, half-eaten meals, bread, stew, all of it frozen solid. The fork was still in the stew, standing upright like a gravestone. The stove was cold. The ashes were days old. The cot was unmade. The blankets were twisted, as if someone had gotten up suddenly, in a hurry, or in a panic. But there were no signs of struggle, no blood, no damage, no overturned furniture, just absence. The squad moved through the room slowly, checking the corners, the shadows. Their breath came out in thick clouds that hung in the air like ghosts. One soldier found the logbook, a leather-bound journal sitting on the table beside the telegraph. He opened it, flipped through the pages. The first entries were routine: weather reports, enemy sightings, supply requests. The handwriting was neat, professional. But toward the end, the entries changed. The handwriting became erratic, shaky. The words ran together. Some sentences were crossed out. Others were written over and over again. They stand in the storm. They watch us. The cold has hands. Do not look at them. They are not men. The white shadows. The white shadows. The white shadows. The last entry was a single word, written in huge, frantic letters that took up an entire page. Run. The soldier closed the book. His hands were shaking. Not from the cold. The sun set fast. One moment, the room was lit by the gray light filtering through the window. The next, it was dark. Completely dark. The squad lit their lanterns, set them on the table. The flames flickered. Weak. The light barely reached the walls. Outside, the blizzard intensified. The wind howled like a living thing. Snow hammered against the window in waves. The door rattled on its hinges. One of the soldiers moved to close it. But as he reached for the handle, he stopped. He stared out into the storm. There was something out there. A shape. Tall. Man-sized. Standing perfectly still in the swirling snow. Not moving. Not swaying in the wind. Just standing. He stared at it. The shape didn't move. He blinked. When he opened his eyes, the shape was closer. He slammed the door shut, barred it, stepped back. His breathing came fast, shallow. The others looked at him. He pointed at the window. They moved to it, peered out into the storm. And they saw them. Not one shape, dozens, maybe more, standing in a circle around the outpost, silhouettes against the white, motionless, faceless, silent, watching. The cold came next, not gradually, all at once, as if the walls had suddenly turned to ice. The temperature dropped so fast that the moisture in the air crystallized. Frost formed on the inside of the window, on the metal of the telegraph, on the soldiers' beards and eyebrows. Their breath came out in thick clouds that didn't dissipate, that hung in the air like fog. One of the soldiers started shivering violently, uncontrollably. He moved to the stove, tried to light it, but his hands were shaking too hard. The matches kept slipping from his fingers. Another soldier sat at the telegraph, flipped the switch, tapped out a distress signal. The machine crackled. Static. Then, something else. Not Morse code, not human language, just sounds. Deep, resonant, like voices speaking underwater, like wind through a cave, like something breathing. He pulled his hand away from the key as if it had burned him. The soldier by the stove had stopped shivering. He stood up, slowly, staring at nothing. And then he started taking off his coat. The others moved toward him, tried to stop him, but he pushed them away. His movements were jerky, mechanical, like a puppet on strings. He unbuttoned his jacket, let it fall to the floor. Then his sweater, then his shirt. His skin was pale, blue, covered in frost. He walked to the door, reached for the bar. The lead climber grabbed him, wrestled him to the ground, but the man was strong, too strong. His eyes were wide, empty, staring at something beyond the walls, beyond the storm, beyond the world. He fought, clawed, thrashed, And then he went limp. His breathing slowed, stopped. The lead climber let go, stepped back. The body lay on the floor, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. And outside, the shapes moved closer. The lanterns went out one by one. First the one on the table, then the one by the door, then the one by the window. The darkness rushed in like water, filling a drowning man's lungs. The remaining soldiers huddled in the center of the room, back to back. Their breath came in short, panicked gasps. The wind stopped. The sudden silence was worse than the noise. It was complete, absolute. The kind of silence that presses against your eardrums, that makes you doubt whether you're even alive. And then they heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, crunching through the snow outside, coming closer. The door rattled. The bar lifted. The hinges creaked. The door swung open, and the cold came in.